Hello, I am Flatcap Callum and welcome to my Cheltenham Festival 2023 ante-post video number one. Okay, number one because there are three in this series. They are not all coming out at the same time. So if you're watching this in the future, this was originally put out onto the internet somewhere on Wednesday the 8th of February. Video 2 is due out about a week after that, so somewhere around the 14th, 15th of February. And then video 3 will be the beginning of March. So video 1, this video is focused on championship races. So the main obvious 5 championship races, which are the Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Stayers Hurdle, Gold Cup and Ryanair. And then in addition to that, I'm also going to focus in this video on Mares Chase, Mares Hurdle, and I'm going to have a little road conversation about the cross country because it doesn't really fit in anywhere else. So those are the 8 races covered on this video. Video 2 will be all of the races focused on the novice division, so novice chases, novice hurdles and things like the champion bumper. And then video 3, which is coming out much closer to Cheltenham, that is going to focus on all of the handicap races, so solely the handicap races. So I like to do that one a lot nearer to Cheltenham. I'm not a big one for betting on Cheltenham handicaps this far out. So that is what I've got. If you're new to me, new to my channel, I've been running my own YouTube channel since January 2022. I focus on value in the market. So I try and identify where the betting market has got it wrong in my eyes. So a horse that might be 50 to 1 in the betting market that I think actually should be 20 to 1. Or a horse that is 8 to 1 in the betting market that I think is 5 to 1. So I look at value in lots of different ways. What I'm trying to do is ultimately beat the market and predict the horses that will either shorten in odds or their chances are much better than the betting market would have you believe. That's what I'm going to talk you through. The way that I'll do the anti-post video is very similar to anyone who watched it last year. I'm going to go through each race, give you a few musings as I go along, and at the end I'll give you my conclusion. And the conclusion is basically my recommended bets, and I'll advise the prices and the current best bookmakers to put those bets on. What you do with them is entirely up to you. It's a free channel. All the content I put out there is free. My tips, my advice is free. So whether it's good or bad, however you choose to just think about it, it is all free. So it's entirely optional what you do with it. Last year, I had an excellent success rate at Cheltenham Festival, so both in terms of anti-post videos and in the actual Cheltenham Festival itself. So for the anti-post videos, I put out 3 videos. If all you did was back all of the advised bets at the end as singles at the prices quoted, you'd have made a profit on every single one of those 3. So there are winners on all 3 of my anti-post conclusion bets. Long Presse winning the Brown Advisory was a particular highlight. Pulled out at 33 to 1 was the advice, so went off much shorter than that. But I had Third Wind win the Pertemps handicap hurdle, not been seen since, but that went out and won. That won very nicely. We had First Street that was second at the county hurdle, not beaten very far. Bardenstown Lad was placed in the Albert Bartlett. I had a couple of shorter price winners, Edwardstone winning the Arkle, Flooring Porter winning the Stayers. So all of those were part of the conclusions at each end of one of my videos. Then the actual main Cheltenham Festival, if you watch that, I did what I call a £200 series. So it was advised £50 a day, and based on SP prices, it was a combination of singles and accumulators. But if you took all the bets, SP prices would have paid you a 60% profit on everything I put out last year for Cheltenham. I cannot make any guarantees that this Cheltenham will be as decent or not. I had a good Cheltenham last year. It's not the first Cheltenham I've had a good Cheltenham. Do I win every single year at Cheltenham? Not every single year. So it's there. I'm putting it out to you. What you will get from me is you will get my honest thoughts and advice. I'm not going to give anything a big write-up and blow it up and something the best ever. I'm not here to try and get the most subscribers, the most likes. I'm trying to share the advice that I've got and help other people. And hopefully that is fun in a fun way, and mainly, hopefully, it is also profitable. But I do not make any guarantees to what I am doing. What I will say to you is, outside of making these videos, I am a punter. I make money from gambling. Okay? that is what. It's not my primary source of income currently, but I do all right out of it. So doesn't mean every single bet I put out wins. What it means is I win long term, and that's what I'm more interested in. So there's your lovely preamble for video 1. So what we're going to do, we are going to kick off with the Champion Hurdle. So my view on the Champion Hurdle. Your Constitution Hill, massive odds on favourite, State Man second favourite, and then it looks a fantastic race at this stage for some each way value. I think the interesting thing will be when we actually get down to it and actually get to the Tuesday of Cheltenham, have we still got 8 runners to make it a decent each way race? Because the actual declarations at the moment are on the low side. And given the fact that Constitution Hill looks such a decent favourite, there's not many anywhere near going to touch that in terms of odds on favourites for Cheltenham this year. Given that that's there and State Man looks a solid second, how many other horses are ultimately going to line up in that race? So we want eight places. Arguably at this stage, I would say there's potential. If you get the right one, you might be better off even backing them now ante-post, getting 3 places, than you would do on the actual week of Cheltenham, when if it only ends up being 7 runners in the Champion Hurdle, which would be statistically low for a race like that, but if you only ended up with 6 or 7, you'd only be getting first 2 places, and it would not be a good betting heat. So there is some argument, I would say, that right now backing in the Champion Hurdle, and the only race I would say it for, is actually particularly worth looking at in the ante-post market. So do I think Constitution Hill is likely to get beaten? I doubt it. It to me, I think it looks absolutely like the real deal. There's always going to be doubters. Would I back it at 4 to 11 or whatever it is? Not a chance. Not interested. But I wouldn't put it in an accumulator. Not for me. There's no point backing that in terms of from a value perspective. I think the price for the horse is probably about right, and therefore, it would, for me, I would need to be looking at something like 4 to 6, which might sound ridiculous to people because who would back that? But I wouldn't back 4 to 11, but I might look at 4 to 6 in some sort of other accumulator based bet, but I wouldn't ever back that single. So the question is, if you're not going to back Constitution Hill and you're not going to back State Man, where are you going to go? The market says Vauban is the solid third favourite. I would want to be looking beyond Vauban. And I think there is some players in there at some really, really decent odds. There's a couple that catch my eye, and one of them is going to be in my conclusion, and one of them is one I'm going to advise for a non-runner no bet. The challenge you've got this year also with the Champion Hurdle is there are a number of horses lurking at that slightly middle part of the market that also could run in the Mares Hurdle. And on paper, most of them, if you follow the market, would suggest it looks like Mares Hurdle is a preference. So, what do I think? I think at the moment, Epatante, if you look at Betfair, so Betfair have got some cracking odds at the moment. With Betfair right now, Epatante is 33 to 1. Now the question is, will Epatante run in the Mares Hurdle or will it run in the Champion Hurdle? The markets are suggesting it will run in the Mares Hurdle, which is why it's so short. And outside of the markets, most people would go, well, it's trained by Nicky Henderson. Why is he going to run it in the Champion Hurdle against Constitution Hill? Because Constitution Hill's already beaten it a couple of times. Well, he might run it in there because actually the place money in the Champion Hurdle is worth more potentially than the win money for the Mares Hurdle. The Mares Hurdle is a grade 2, Champion Hurdle is a grade 1. So you would be looking at not too dissimilar money for third in the Champion Hurdle versus winning the Mares Hurdle. And I actually think the Mares Hurdle looks particularly competitive, particularly as it now looks like that's where Honeysuckle's going to go. And Honeysuckle's now the favourite. Henderson's got a tricky job. He's got Constitution Hill, favourite for the Champion Hurdle. He's also got Marie's Rock, which is favourite for the Mares Hurdle. It was until Honeysuckle's now switched over, which and Marie's Rock won that race last year. So what does he do with Epatante? So it might come down to ownership. Epatante's owned by JP McManus. If you actually look at the history of the Champion Hurdle, he's the winning most owner of the Champion Hurdle. If you actually look at the history of the Mares Hurdle, he's not a massive one for entering horses in there compared to the Champion Hurdle. And I think if it comes down to ownership decision, I think Epatante actually might run in the Champion Hurdle and run for place money as opposed to get involved in the rough and tough of the Mares Hurdle. It's last year it was a really rough race, and a competitive race, and I think actually you might get an easier run in the Champion Hurdle trying to run on for a bit of place money. So I'm thinking that Epatante is the value play right now in the Champion Hurdle. The other horse I think is worth a mention is Echoes in Rain. Echoes in Rain, again, if you read up, is most likely to run in the Mares Hurdle. If it doesn't, and it rocks up in the Champion Hurdle, I think that looks great for place money as well. But I think that's more risky. So that would be one I would be looking in much more in the non-runner no bet market, whereas Epatante at 33s with Betfair compared to 16 to 1, 20 to 1 most other places that are doing non-runner no bet. I'd take the chance on Epatante being pulled out, and I would much rather take 33s ante-post than I would 20s non-runner no bet. Now, this is an important point to be able to explain to people, because not everybody gets what is ante-post, what is non-runner no bet. So ante-post is the usual market that exists up until 48 hours before a race, whereby if you put the money on the horse and the horse doesn't run, you lose your money. Within 48 hours of a race, if you put your money on the horse and it doesn't run, you get your money back. So ante-post comes with risk. Non-runner no bet is something that's mainly used for Cheltenham Festival by a lot of the major bookies. They want you to entice you to bet more on things at the Cheltenham Festival rather than risky money ante-post. They try and get you to do it through non-runner no bet. Now, what they do through non-runner no bet is actually make you lose value. So you compare true ante-post market with non-runner no bet market, and what you've got is horses running with less value, because they will shorten the odds artificially in the non-runner no bet market, because they're basically giving you support by having a no risk bet, if you like, because you get your money back if it doesn't run. But you have to be really, really careful with from a value perspective. So for me at Cheltenham, I will place a lot more ante-post bets on actual ante-post market. I will do a little bit on non-runner no bet, but it will be much more specific individual horses. So at this stage, where I'm placing my own personal bets on Cheltenham Festival is ante-post market predominantly. Odd odds on non-runner no bet. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, that's the Champion Hurdle. I don't think I'm going to be as long on all the others, so so if you've already fallen asleep, I apologise. But yeah, there's a million and one of these videos out there with people giving their musings. These are just my thoughts. So yeah, then we go Mares Hurdle. So tricky one. Honeysuckle's now gone favourite. I think I would much rather, if I was short price backing, I would much rather be on Marie's Rock. I think there's too many question marks over Honeysuckle at the moment, whereas Marie's Rock's been there and done that in this division. I think the value play might be Tell Me Something Girl, which I backed last year, and I think it's a horse that's been tried over chasers, and there's a question mark about where it's going to turn up at Cheltenham Festival. There's also a big question mark now. Honeysuckle, which has got the same ownership, is running in the Mares Hurdle. Another reason to say, will they run it in the Mares Hurdle? I think it's one that's worth looking at, but I wouldn't be risking it ante-post. I'd be looking at non-runner no bet. But 14 to 1, that's probably the value play for me in that race. All right, that's the Tuesday. That's day one. Going to move to the Wednesday. Two races I'm going to talk about here: Champion Chase and the cross country. Right, hopefully you're still with me, because I know a lot of people do this stuff and they have notes and everything else. I don't have notes. I don't work like that. I just talk because I genuinely know what I'm talking about. I've looked at this stuff, I've researched it, so I have a couple of markers to remind me of the prices and stuff. But yes, this is all coming out of my head rather than a pre-planned script. So hopefully that works for people, and you excuse the mild ramblings at point. So Champion Chase. Champion Chase is the only the only race where I've already tipped up a horse ante-post. So on my last, not one of my last racing videos that went out on Sunday the 5th of February, I tipped up Gentleman Demi at 50 to 1 prior to it going to win in Ireland. So when I looked through all of the Irish markets for the weekend, it was the only horse that stood out to me that was value. It went and won. It's now available. Best price 9 to 1. I think you can get 365. 8-1 broadly with a few others. I've had a right good look through the Champion Chase since the market's reformed, and in essence, I think you've got the four main players in there at the top of the market. So the market's broadly got that race right. It's got Eugenie at the top, which ran badly last time. Will it bounce back? It's too much of a risk for me, so I wouldn't be looking at that. Edwardstone got beat last time, normally runs its race, but again, I would say it's a bit short, and that leaves me therefore looking at Editor de Gite, which has done absolutely nothing wrong, but still the market believes Eugenie and Edwardstone would beat it at Cheltenham. So there's an interesting point there, because there's more value to me in Editor de Gite than there is in Eugenie or Edwardstone. But all that being said, and all the price slashing going being said, I would say Gentleman de Me at 8-1 is actually the value play. If it's looking like a 4-horse race at the moment, which I would say it is for me, I'm not seeing anything bigger that I think would be worth looking at this point. I would say Gentleman de Me 8-1 to finish in the top 3 when I think there's 4 players in the race feels like absolutely the obvious value play to me. So that would be my conclusion there. Quick word on the cross country. Not a race I would be wanting to get involved in ante-post. All I was going to mention on there is Delta Work is currently even money, 11-10 it is on Betfair, best price Betfair 11-10. As far as I see it, that horse should be better than 50-50 to win that race. So if all of the favourites across all of the races for the whole Cheltenham Festival at this point, I'm not one for putting out short price bankers or anything like that, but Delta Work is the best value favourite for me out there in terms of I don't see anything getting close to it. There's a question about whether Galvin will run in that race and run against it. That will put up some decent competition, but Delta Work has been put out for this race, and on level weights in that race, as long as it gets round, which is a better than 50-50 chance of getting round, I can't see anything else stepping up to beat the horse. So yeah, it's the best favourite to me. So I'm not putting it out in my conclusions for this race. I'm not suggesting you back that horse ante-post 11-10, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me when you actually get to Cheltenham week whether that horse is actually odds on, and the 11-10 will actually look quite decent at this point. That is Wednesday. Then we're moving on to Thursday. Not loads for this video for Thursday. So we've got Ryanair. I find the Ryanair market, as it often is, too difficult to read at this stage. There's too many horses that have question mark, will it run in that race or will it not? Will it go in the Gold Cup? Will it go somewhere else? And the two that I would focus on at the moment are both declared to run at Ascot week Saturday on the 18th. So Fakir Duderis and Pic Doré. I think both of those are solid horses who, if they turn up, have got great chances of getting in the frame. Fakir Duderis as placed in the last couple of Ryanair chases, it all comes down to, is there something decent enough to beat it? There's a question mark about most of the ones at the top of the market, like Allaho or whatever, and I just think I would walk away from those question marks. The challenge with those two horses, both of them absolutely could swerve going to run at Cheltenham. So I would say they're the best two, Fakir Duderis and Pic Doré. So they're going to get in my non-runner no-bet selections, but not in the final selections for the video. Then I'm going to move on the Stayers Hurdle. Really find that tricky. It's a tricky one. It often is a bit open, and I think there's lots you could argue for at the top of the market, but it just looks too open to me, and I don't think anything is sitting at a decent price currently. So I'm going to have to go, and it's not just out of loyalty to the old boy, but Paisley Park sat 20-1 at Betfair. The horse is going to run. I'm sure the horse will run in the race. Yes, it's getting on for Stayers Hurdle. Yes, it didn't run so well last time, but it absolutely tries, and it knows what it's doing at Cheltenham. And I think if there's question marks with the other from a value perspective at 20-1, Paisley Park. And some will call me crazy. I think that's the value play there, despite the age and the fact that last time it didn't run to its best. That's my Stayers Hurdle view. All right, now we're moving on to Friday. 2 races to go. Gold Cup, Mare's Chase. Gold Cup. What do we think? Galopin de Champs. Anything going to beat it? I think it's the right favourite. I absolutely think it's the right favourite. What I absolutely think is the value is Brave Man's Game at 8-1. a King George winner, which has done absolutely nothing wrong. Yes, it's against some top quality Irish horses, but 8-1, I just think that's a silly price. I think 4 or 5-1 might be more a reasonable price for Brave Man's Game. But Nichols is not going to put that and risk that in that race unless he thought it was going to run a decent race. So yeah, I think Brave Man's Game at 8-1. It's not the biggest price for a kind of a value play, but I think actually in terms of right now, you're only going to get first three in that market. So when we actually get to Gold Cup, you might be looking at bigger. And if I was looking at bigger, then something like Royal Pagaille. So I wouldn't be putting that up now ante-post. But when you get to nearer, that's run a couple of decent races in the Gold Cup. And that's the kind of horse where if you get to Cheltenham Day and you're looking at 40-50-1 and they're offering you 5 places, Royal Pagaille might be a value play for an each way selection. But right now, ante-post point, Brave Man's Game at 8 looks the safest option. The other one I would mention, which is my absolute rogue selection for the video, is Envoy Allen. So there's no guarantees that horse is going to turn up and run the Gold Cup, and the noise is suggesting that it might swerve it altogether and go to Aintree. But you can't get away from the fact that horse was 4-1 for the King George. It was liked for the King George. It didn't run a very good race. But right now on Sky Bet, I'll get to it at the end, but I think it's Sky Bet, you can get 80-1 Envoy Allen, non-runner, no bet. That's worth having a go. If that horse doesn't run, you get your money back. But 80-1 on a horse that was 4-1 for the King George, that's now 80-1 next time out for the Gold Cup. I think it's less than 50-50 it's going to run, but I don't think you're going to lose anything on a no risk bet in that sense. So that's my rogue one. And then finishing off, Mare's Chase. I think the top two are very, very close. I would edge on Algeri Devassi as the one that I would prefer of the two. But I actually think, looking down the market, again, you've got a few that are probably going to come out of that race. And the one that sticks at a nice price is Magic Days. I think it's got enough about it. It doesn't look on paper good enough to bother the front two, but you never quite know in these races. Last year, the Mare's Chase result was all a bit topsy-turvy, so you never can tell. For that race, I'd want to be on an Irish horse, definitely. And I think 40-1, which you can get at the moment with 365, looks like a nice price. It's 20-1 in most places, 40's on 365. That's where I'd be looking at the Mare's Chase for a little bit of value. So, if you're still with me, right till the end, this is the conclusion. I mean, literally, people are just going to scroll to the end, aren't they? But these are my suggestions for non-runner, no bet. And these are all Sky Bet. So the Sky Bet non-runner, no bet market. So these are all ones I wouldn't be putting these in multiples. But in terms of actually, if they turn up and run at the odds they are currently, they are worth a little dabble, I would suggest to you. So Champion Hurdle, Echoes in Rain, more like to run the Mare's Hurdle. We've got the Mare's Hurdle, Tell Me Something Girl, 14-1, more like to run the Mare's Chase potentially. Ryanair Chase, Fakir Duderis and Pic de Ray might not even turn up to Cheltenham. And the Gold Cup, Envoy Allen, again, might not turn up at 80-1. But they are my best 5 for the main championship races, non-runner, no bet market, Sky Bet advisory prices. That's the taster. The actual final verdict is this. These are the 5 I'm putting up from this video. 4 of them advised with Betfair, and then a ... line for the last one's 365. So if you wanted to take the big 4 races and you put them in a lucky 15, then that's what you could do with them. If you're just a singles backer, you might think some of them are a bit short. But right now, ante-post market on Betfair, those are my 4. So Champion Hurdle, Epatante, 33s. Champion Chase, Gentleman Demir, 8s. Stayers Hurdle, Paisley Park at 20s. Gold Cup, Brave Man's Game at 8s. And then the other one with a mention, because the price is 20s on Betfair, but 40-1, 365. Magic Days for the Mare's Chase. I think that's worth a little single on 365. Thus concludes my thoughts for video 1 of Ante-Post. If you've enjoyed it, brilliant, I'm delighted. Join me for video 2, where I'll be going through all of the novice races. where you generally find there's a little bit more value lurking about than the championship races, because you've got a few more unexposed horses. So we'll see what I come out with then, and then we'll be back at some point for video 3 for the handicaps. That is me for video 1. Thank you very much for watching. Much appreciated. I'll see you again.